Alright, this is Saint Legend. I was just done doing the other tutorial. Right now we're going to be focusing on time-lapse animations. Or I'm going to say... How am I going to call this video? I don't know what to call it. What did I group my favorite as? Timer switch loop. Timer switch loop. Okay, so this is called a timer switch loop, I'm going to call it, okay? It will make sense to you when I explain it. Let's say you have a set of events that happen continuously at once. Let's say if you want a bunch of lights to spawn in and then despawn a second after. Almost like energy is being flowed to one area. Like here, you see? Energy is constantly flowing, but it's constantly being despawned. It's not correctly timed, but you have an idea. It's happening at a simultaneously fast and slow speed. I can give you a super crazy one after this. So this is like easy tutorial, and then we're gonna go to the advanced. Okay? Because it gets pretty crazy. This is the same exact thing over and over again. Think of it as a frame-by-frame animation. Except here, you're spawning in the frame and despawning the frame. Spawning in the frame, despawning the frame. But what problem that I had is, I had a switch filter with 4 individual case values turned in. Because I have another tutorial for that. You pretty much have to use a switch filter, and when all switches turn on, it passes the main impulse to turn on the main event. So it's almost like 4 switches turn on one light. But you need all 4 switches in any order to turn on the light. But this specific area, I need 2 points of data, and when 2 points are met, then I can turn on the light. So you know what you guys do? You use math. Simple math. It's just 1 plus 1 equals 2. That's it. But it's a comparison value. So I'm going to show you how it goes. So you obviously want a start interval of instant, a delayed interval of 1.6 seconds, but you would want this one to be instant first, and then you want this one to be a sort of a delay. So whatever your start is and your delay matches your output and your input. Your input matches your output, so your input stream to your output stream. So you want to send a signal at a certain amount of ticks. So I sent this at 600 ticks, and I sent this one at 700 ticks, so 100 milliseconds less. So it's 600, 700, 600, 700. So it has 100 milliseconds, or the set amount of value times for it to comparison a value. So it's really measuring time values again, like last video. Once you get the values down, you can do it. Okay, so when the first value passes, we're going to have a generic filter. We want the comparison value to be 2. We want to press Y to pick a new value to a variable data source, because a variable data source, you could change values simultaneously on the fly. And then you want to put it at 0 because it's going to be a default value. It's a data source. It's going to change whatever you want by different events. So when the first event passes through in a set amount of time, it's going to set the value to 1. And then when the second info come through, then it's going to set the second impulse to increase by 1 to make it 2. When 2 are in place, it's going to send an impulse to this event, and then it's going to reset the countdown. So it's almost like having 2 different timers activate the same timer to restart the same countdown. And to do it again, like an infinite looping system. But there's a problem here. This is the on event. That's always on when you start. When the impulse passes through, instantly we have to turn this off, because we only wanted to send 1 interval. Okay? Now, it's off. How do we turn it on again? Well, when the second impulse comes into play, it's going to send another interval to turn the switch on. So as soon as it turns the switch on, okay, it's going to pass an interval and immediately switch it off. So you see what I'm saying? It's going to do everything simultaneously at one time. So I'm going to show you a visual example. Dot, 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 and then boom. You see, it's an infinite switch. Now, another way probably you could do it too is, you see that variable data source right there with the numbers 2? You could say decrease by -2, and that should reset the value as well. But I don't think that makes sense, because how are you supposed to turn the generic filter off? Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. That was an in-depth tutorial right there. And now, this is the crazy one. I have 36 different impulses. It's the same exact setup here. Except here, I'm going to start with a certain time frame and a default time frame. It's the same value again. I'm starting at 300 milliseconds. And here, I'm starting at 50 milliseconds. So 50 milliseconds, 400 milliseconds later, gap-wise. So it's like instant. You just play around with the values to see what you want, right? Sadly, you can't tie this all to a variable data source to make it fast. You have to do it one by one. Well, at least that's what I think. I probably could have saved some time. This is the crazy one. Okay, so this is like a time-lapse events. Let it sink in, you see? It's just the same time frame over and over again. It's just on a lot larger scale. So what I wanted to do is, since I'm building Skytown Elysee, I wanted a magnetic rail to share electricity points at different timings. So from point A to point B, but at times 36 intervals per second, spawning and despawning. In Metroid Prime, they're using a waving animation, which is very, very easy. Or you could say an animation that travels from point A to point B and back, which I'm going to teach you how to do the best type of physical animation next round. Okay, so this is basically what I did. Constant flow of lights moving between the different points of view. So you can actually see it better from this standpoint of view. Should have showcase the final product for that video. Alright, so you can see a clear shot from here. So it's like an electricity current, like in Metroid Prime, you see? It's traveling inputs from one input to another. See what I'm saying? It looks cool, huh? Very complicated to set up. This is when I turn on the code. You see what I'm saying? You can't even see, so what's the... But you know what I mean. And that's my tutorial, guys. I hope it was useful. This map will be released pretty soon. It's a lot of work. It's pretty much like my training session for video game design here on Trials. Trying to take the editor to the next level and to see what stuff I can come up with. This is going to be a first-person shooter. Skytown Elysia, FPS. Make sure to check it out. I'm Zane Legend. I'm out. And just keep editing, dude. Just keep making maps. And I'm just trying to help someone down the road if they want to do this type of time-lapse animation. Alright. So, I'll see you. I'm Zane Legend. I'm out. See you guys on my next tutorial for the day.